Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another wonderful Cook Along Live. I'm your host, Robert Sogamonian. We're going to be making some seared ahi today. Seared ahi and asparagus. So let me know how my mic sounds. I put a couple of different settings on it. It sounded all right on my end, but just making sure you all can hear me fine this week. And let's go ahead and get started. First thing we're going to do is we're actually going to build our marinade for our ahi. And it's a very simple marinade. We're going to start with 1 tablespoon of honey. Nope, 2 tablespoons of honey. Go ahead and get these all squeezed out. My honey has started to crystallize. Ran it under some hot tap water earlier, but it's at that point where I think I need to get a new honey. Just going to use my fingers to kind of squish it out. Gives us the added benefit of getting to have a little taste while we're cooking. Just get as much of that out as you can. There we go. And squeeze number 2. Always fun working with some of this crystallization. Nice hearty squeeze. I'll get that out of the way. Get our honey into the bowl. Now, crystallized honey doesn't affect the honey. It's not like it's gone bad or anything. It's just all the sugar is quite literally starting to crystallize together. Usually you can add a little bit of hot water, like just a little bit, maybe a teaspoon, and then run it under some hot water to kind of try and get it redissolved. Doesn't always work 100%, especially the longer the honey's been sitting. So on top of that, we're going to add 2 teaspoons of sesame oil. You can add more if you really like the flavor, but sesame oil can be super overpowering, and so I like to kind of start a little bit light and then build up from there. Pardon me while I lick some honey off of my fingers. We're also going to put in 2 tablespoons of mirin. One, 2, and 2 tablespoons of rice vinegar. Rice vinegar, rice wine vinegar, they'll both work. Seasoned or unseasoned, really kind of a taste preference. Try it with both and see which one you like better. You'll notice that I started with the honey, and now I'm going into kind of the vinegars and some of the more liquidy things. That'll help you sort of rinse out your tablespoon as you're going, getting a little bit more of that honey into the actual bowl here. Now what I'm going to do is just kind of set the tablespoon aside, use a whisk, and just kind of start combining this really quick. Now don't worry, I haven't forgotten about the soy sauce, but since we have a nice clear liquid, you can see how well the honey is being incorporated into everything in the bowl before you add your soy sauce and totally darken it up to where you can't see anything. So you want to mix and just make sure you get your honey well incorporated. And yep, the microwave works amazing. I actually put it in the microwave for 1.5 minutes in 20-second increments, and still the crystals are there. All right, we're getting our honey nice and mixed through. No residue on the bottom of the bowl. Perfect. So now we will add our 1/4 cup of soy sauce. I'm using regular soy sauce. You can use low sodium if you'd like. You can also use dark soy sauce if you'd like. It'll just add a little bit more richness to the flavor. There's our 1/4 cup. Just go whoop right in. And then we'll go ahead and get these guys off to the side. Give this another mix. I recommend using a whisk if you have one. It'll help kind of, it's not really emulsifying, but it'll help kind of break up the sesame oil and distribute it thoroughly. And wipe off that honey. Now, Joff is going to hate me, Etienne is going to hate me for this because we are using our trusty plastic bag, although I have actually washed and rinsed this one 3 times, so I am reusing it. We're going to put about half of our marinade into the plastic bag. Half to 3/4 of it. About like that. Now, if you're looking from the front, it's going to be just about that much, like an inch or so down there on the bottom. And then what we're going to do is just kind of set this aside and make sure it doesn't fall over, because that happens all the time. And Etienne's going to hate me again because we're going to use a paper towel. Sorry, buddy. But we need to dry off our ahi. So you should have a pretty nice ahi steak. We're going to go ahead and just pat it dry, get any of that extra moisture off of it. Like so. And I know we're going to be putting it right into a marinade, which kind of counterintuitive, but this will just ensure that you're getting more of the marinade flavor and less of the moisture from the fish diluting it. So gently slide that into your plastic bag. Now what we're going to do is lay this puppy flat. Make sure that it's slid all the way to the bottom. And then we're going to tilt up the side where the opening is and squeeze out as much air as we can. And what we're going to do is this is going to allow the fish to have almost full contact with the marinade. The more air you can squeeze out, the more surface area of the fish will be covered. If you have a vacuum pump, feel free to use one of those vacuum seal bags to kind of really suck the air out. Those can get messy, so this is just a slightly easier method. You can also use a straw to suck out all of the air. Just make sure you don't inhale marinade. All right. There we go. You see that even with the bag laying flat, the top of the fish has marinade on top, so it's going to be absorbing from all sides. We're actually going to flip this halfway through as well. This just makes it super, super easy. Keep the opening up on top just in case it separates and opens, but when we flip it, we'll do that kind of a thing and just make sure that that opening is always on top. If you want, put a fork on top of it so that it doesn't flap over. Mine is actually holding just fine, so I'll just set him aside. Cool. Rest of the marinade we're going to reserve for a little bit later. I'm just going to set that over there. Now, before we get too far into this, I'm going to show you what kind of beer I'm drinking today. I love my Mike Hess glass. I love all the glasses that have this like can shape. They're really, really cool. I love them. I'm going to be drinking Elysian Contact Haze, Hazy IPA today. I'm not sponsored by any of these breweries, but man, I should look into that. This is a really nice hazy IPA, kind of a light flavor, a little bit hoppy, but pretty refreshing nonetheless. As you can see, good color there. Yes, yum. All right, so we're going to move on to our asparagus. Let me get some of this honey and some of the other moisture off, and we don't need our whisk anymore, so I'll set that aside. There we go. How's everybody's week been? Oh man, Kako, that sucks. Kako? Keiko? How do you pronounce it? Long A or a short A? Let's see. Asparagus. So when you buy asparagus from the store, you usually get spears that look something like this. And this is awesome. Usually what they do is they leave about an inch or so of the woody part down on the bottom. I don't know if you guys can see it up there. Let me see if I can do more. Very fibrous. I'm not sure if the camera will autofocus on that or not. But it's chewy and not super tasty, and it takes a long time to really kind of cook it so that it's edible. So what I like to do is just kind of trim off the bottom inch or so and make all of my spears about the same length. So what I'll do is I'll actually line up the tops, not the bottoms. And then here I'll probably trim this side up about an inch to 3/4 of an inch. And I'll just cut the bottoms off of all of these. So go ahead and grab right out there. Now we've got a bunch of asparagus that are all approximately the same length. we're not going to do very much to the asparagus. This is pretty much it. We've got some really nice looking spears here. One's missing just the tip, but can't avoid that sometimes. What we are going to do, though, is we're going to go ahead and take a look at, let's see, I want to be on here. Our pan over here. We're actually going to get this up to medium-high heat and get it going. We're going to add a little bit of vegetable oil. I'm using peanut oil. You can use canola oil, vegetable oil, Crisco if you got it. You don't want too much, but you do want enough to cover the bottom of the pan. And then before we get too far into this, we're going to let this heat up. You'll notice we're not seasoning the asparagus or anything at this point. Coat the bottom of the pan with our oil. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually grab a lid that just about covers the pan. So what I want to do is we're actually going to sear the asparagus on one side, flip it all over, and then cover it so that it steams inside of this pan and almost creates like an oven environment so that it cooks the asparagus through. We're going to season the asparagus while it's cooking. There's no reason to get your cutting board all dirty. It works just fine to put some salt and pepper in the actual pan while you're searing it. Now, getting back to the marinade and the ahi, you can marinate that up to several hours if you'd like. However, just letting it sit for 5 to 10 minutes actually adds quite a bit of flavor. It's really, really cool. And while we're waiting on this, I'm going to flip it once. So again, I'm just going to turn it around, keep the open side of the bag at the top. Now we'll just get that set to the side again. Go ahead and check. It's warming up. While we're waiting, we'll just kind of clean off our knife, put it back in the block because we're not using it. And what else can we do? Let's go ahead and get this plate. I really want that oil to heat up before I put the asparagus on it. I want some really nice brown to blackish sear spots on it when I put it in. And you're only going to get that if you let the pan heat up really well. You'll also notice that the asparagus here is super, super dry. I've actually, I rinsed it about an hour ago, let it kind of sit in the colander to really drain, and then put it on a tea towel and kind of patted dry all the sides. The drier it is, the better the grill marks will be, or the sear marks if you're using a pan. We're going to go ahead and just set these in one at a time. You should start hearing a little bit of a sizzle. Go ahead and just kind of get some of this oil moved around. And we're going to start searing our asparagus. We're only going to leave it on one side, like basically 2 minutes aside, just to get a nice little kind of bit of color on there. Like I said, we're going to go ahead and season it in the pan. So we'll grab some salt, sprinkle a generous amount on this side. Grab some pepper. Again, nice generous amount. And we're really just going to kind of let that sit. While it cooks, I'm going to come over here and grab a pair of tongs so I can flip the asparagus. I'm really just going to kind of keep an eye on it. And I like to kind of test the outer ones and the middle one. And you'll get a pretty good idea of where your asparagus stands and if you have any hot spots in your pan. You can rotate it around if you'd like. And while that's going, we'll go ahead and flip our ahi one more time. Again, just making sure that we're getting as much of it coated with this marinade as we can. Asparagus, I'm going to go ahead and flip it around. And that's a good sear mark. Pretty good on that one. That one looks delicious. There we go. Getting just a light blister. You really don't want to cook this too much because then they'll burn, and burned asparagus does not taste very good. There we are. We're going to add just a little bit more seasoning to this side. And then what we're going to do is get this bad boy covered. Like so. We can also turn down the heat to medium because all of that heat is going to be trapped underneath the lid. We don't want to burn the backsides of the asparagus, but we'll keep that energy going into there to kind of steam it in there in its own fluid, own juices, whatever. While that's happening, we're going to go ahead and set out a plate. I've got some mixed white, or regular, I guess, and black sesame seeds. I'm going to sprinkle them out on the plate. And I want a good, even covering like so. And then what we're going to do, use some of our trusty paper towels. And now we're going to pull our ahi gently out of the marinade. And again, we're going to give it a little bit of a dry off. Now, if you have some wasabi paste, or if you have some wasabi mustard or spread or something like that, you can put a little thin layer over on top of this. It gives it a little bit more of a kick as well. Go gentle, because you don't want to kill yourself. But it lets the sesame seeds kind of adhere a little bit better. We're going to go ahead and just put that right down on our sesame seeds and press down just a bit. We'll let some of those sesame seeds stick to that side. Ooh, pickled asparagus sounds awesome, Juno. Yum, yum. And yeah, I mean, char them as much as you'd like. Depends on how crispy you like them. These are going to be really nice. I just don't like to go overboard. I like them with a little bit of flavor on them, but not too overdone. We're going to go ahead and turn our tuna. And while we turn it, we're going to take the edges and press them into the seeds that are on the plate. And same thing with the backside. We're going to get everything kind of pressed in and rotate it around. You switch over to here. So we're getting all of the seeds around the outside of the tuna. Be gentle with the tuna because it will want to kind of peel apart from itself. That's just kind of how the protein is. When it comes to tuna, feel free to add more sesame seeds. You're looking for good coverage. If you're fortunate enough to have a really big bowl and you have like a ton of sesame seeds, just pour them all in the bowl. Totally coat this bad boy. It's the best way, although that's a lot of sesame seeds that you're kind of wasting, in my opinion. So I like to kind of go as low budget as I can and get as many on without having a ton of waste. And then there we go. If you're using, again, like a wasabi or some kind of an exterior glaze or something, you will get a little bit better adhesion. But the moisture in the fish itself should be enough to get plenty of them to stick. All right, we're going to go ahead and take our lid off. The asparagus is done. So we're going to grab our serving plate and plate it up. I'm going to start right in the middle. Got some good blistering on this asparagus. I'm going to build it like so. Give ourselves a little ramp. Something like that. Let's put that straight one at the back. Perfect. We're going to set our plate aside. And then what I'm going to do is towel, wipe out any of the seasoning that went into our asparagus. I'm going to set this towel aside. we're going to put in a little bit more peanut oil, and we're going to crank this up to high. Here's the thing with searing ahi. A lot of people put it on super high heat, don't add enough oil, and leave it down for too long. When you're searing a steak, you really want a nice, good brown color on the outside of a steak. That's not the case with an ahi tuna. You really just want to put it down until it colors, just that normal ahi color, and then you want to flip it. You don't want to leave it down, and especially when you're encrusting it with sesame seeds or really anything on the outside, you can very easily burn the sesame seeds. Again, totally depends on what you're looking for in what you're eating. But give yourself a good bit of oil. And then as far as the fish is concerned, we're just going to do like 30 to 45 seconds aside until the sesame seeds are toasted. At that point, the fish will absolutely be cooked. And we're going to let our pan heat up until it just starts to steam. If you throw a couple of these sesame seeds in, you'll see them jumping around. That's great. Peanut oil is awesome, Juno. I love it. High smoke point, very little flavor. I also love olive oil, but... Alright, so we've got some smoking coming out of the pan. The oil is just starting to smoke. We're going to go ahead and grab our tuna. I'm going to find the side that I want to put down, probably the one that's got the most seeds on it, which is looking like this one. And I'm going to lay this down and lay it away from me. So like so. Now I'm going to turn this down to medium, medium, high. I really don't want to scorch those sesame seeds. And once the pan is hot, you're just keeping enough energy into it to keep it warm. You don't have to keep it scorching. Otherwise, you'll burn the oil, you'll burn the fish, you'll absolutely burn the seeds. Let that go for 30 seconds. I'm using some of the seeds that have fallen into the oil to kind of judge how brown I'm expecting the seeds on the bottom of this fish to be. I can get this plate out of the way and bring my plating plate back. And get this back up to medium-high. They are starting to kind of brown. You can also see on the edges, you can see about how far through the fish has been cooked. But be careful, because if the oil is splattering, the oil splattering up the sides of the fish is actually going to make it look like it's cooking way more than it actually is. So just keep that in mind. Let's go ahead and scoop underneath. And we will flip it. And there we go. No burned seeds. Got some nice toasty blonde seeds. And of course the black seeds are black seeds, so they're already colored. There we go. Same thing. We're going to leave this on like a medium, medium-high heat. Let it go for about 30 seconds, 45 seconds. Grab another towel. As the cast iron is getting a little bit warm. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pick it up. Up to you whether you want to toast the sides or not. If you do, find the flat sides and give them, again, about 30 seconds on each side, 45 seconds maybe. And then we'll just kind of roll it gently. Careful, because the oil does splatter up. And at this point, you're going to start really kind of getting that aroma of the sesame marinade that we put together. The sesame seed, the mirin, and the rice wine vinegar. Go ahead and rotate one last time. And then we'll switch over here because we're going to pop it out of the pan and set it down on our cutting board. Get our pan off. You're going to have tons of smoke because you're searing it. What do you expect? If you have a oven fan or a range fan, you may want to turn that on. All right, so there's a couple of different ways that you can go about cutting this up. You'll notice we have this big old piece kind of sticking out on the top, and what I really kind of want is to have just a nice rectangular shape here, so that every piece is kind of even, the same size, everything like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to trim that piece off. We're still going to use it. We're going to eat it. It's going to look great, but I'm going to try and even up the rest of the fish. I'm just going to go ahead and gently cut through. We'll pull that to the side. Ahi's cooked perfectly. Nice little rare center and great searing on the outside. We'll start on one side. And we'll do this. I'm going to go ahead and cut about here. Now I want my ahi to be just about a ½ inch thick. You can go thinner if you'd like, but I like thicker pieces of ahi when I'm doing this. We'll put one down, and then we'll just start kind of layering them on top of that one. Like so. Number 3, so you'll notice that we're using that as kind of like a little bit of a platform so that everything else can sit up. And then we'll put another one over here. And then the plating is really up to you. You can lay it flat on the plate. You can kind of go up the asparagus like I'm doing here. I like the kind of verticality. I think it gives it a little bit of an interesting look on the plate. And as we all know, the better something looks, the better it tastes. And this I'll lay on the back. And then we've got a couple of larger pieces. I mean, if you're doing this at home, these are the ones you get to taste test before you serve. But everything else looks amazing. Let's go ahead and set that at the back. We'll take our end pieces here, and we'll just totally surround our asparagus. How does that look? All right, now remember that marinade that we kind of saved at the beginning? Of course you do. The best thing about that is we're actually going to grab a little tablespoon, and we have some fresh marinade that we can now spoon over everything, which will help to flavor the asparagus, give a nice sesame glaze over the ahi. And make the dish look a little bit more interesting with some fluid down on the bottom. There we go. I like to shake the plate just a little bit to kind of encourage it to level itself out. Now we'll just wipe off the edges. And there we go. Very, very tasty. Sesame seed encrusted seared ahi with seared asparagus. This is a absolutely delicious dish if you like seafood. I know one of y'all, I think Keiko at the beginning was saying that you're allergic to seafood. Very sorry to hear that. I'll switch over to that camera and we'll do the money shot. Let me actually just do that without me in it. So beautiful, beautiful sear on this. You got a beautiful amount of juices underneath, seasoning, marinade, if you will, and just make sure that everything tastes very, very flavorful. All right, everybody, that's the end of today's show. Hopefully this was a fun one for you. Definitely give this a try. This ahi is amazing. What you'll notice is that it's probably easier to find frozen ahi in the store than it is to find fresh ahi, and that's totally fine. The frozen ahi is actually quick frozen as soon as it's processed, so it's essentially as good as when it came off the boat or when it got processed. And that is good. Get a little bit of that sesame, the oil flavor, and then also the toasted sesames on the outside kind of popping on your mouth, crunching while you're biting into the fish. Really, really tasty. And that's also why I don't put too much sesame oil in the marinade, because then you can really overpower that sesame flavor, and you kind of want to taste the fish, and you kind of want to taste the rest of everything else. So I like to go a little bit gentle on the sesame at the beginning. If you make this and find that you want a little bit more flavor, add another teaspoon. There's nothing wrong with changing the recipe, right? Make it the way you like it. All right, everybody, have a wonderful Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening. Hopefully you guys give this a try this week coming up. If you enjoy these types of videos, subscribe here. We're on week 49. I started this a year ago. When we get to 52, we're going to have a 1-year special celebration. So keep an eye out for that. As always, everybody, pleasure to have you on the stream. Yep, every Sunday at 4:30 Pacific time, which is right now. And the recordings are available on my channel. I actually have a playlist called Cook Along Live. You can go and look at this episode and all past episodes. And we do all kinds of stuff here. We've done sushi, we've done beef Wellington for Christmas, we've done all kinds of stuff. So hopefully we'll see you guys again on the next one, and have a wonderful week. Adios, everybody.